The city of Cincinnati wants to make it easier to build housing. Mayor Aftab Pureval has proposed the first major rewrite of Cincinnati's land use policy in 20 years, a sweeping revision aimed at significantly increasing the amount of housing being built in a city that needs thousands of new housing units to meet demand. And Lord knows, myself and all the other real estate agents here in Cincinnati and anyone who's been trying to buy a house knows that we need more housing units. Most critical to the city's housing shortfall is what Mayor Aftab Pureval is calling the missing middle. Now, these are residences between single-family homes and large mixed-use projects. The city wants to make it easier for the private sector to build some new and renovate existing buildings to create more duplexes, row houses, and small mixed-use developments with residential units. If the city gets it right, Cincinnati housing will become more affordable for buyers and renters alike and will retain and gain residents, which is critical to building its economy and its future. Now, as I dug into this, something I really like about this plan is that it'll be working alongside of new public transportation efforts. The plan, which city leaders recently rolled out, they say it's going to make it easier to build housing near transit routes and business districts. What does that mean? Well, broadly speaking, the changes will allow higher density residential areas. Pureval and City Councilman Reggie Harris are leading the effort on what's being called connected communities. They say more housing would lower rents throughout the city, paving the way for new residents and preventing current residents from leaving. Now, a lot of this information is being reported on by the Cincinnati Enquirer. Make sure to follow them. They're going to keep it on lock as this story progresses. And they found out earlier in the year that the median asking rent, or the rental price listed by a landlord for a one-bedroom apartment in the Cincinnati area, is about $825. And if you look at that number nationally, we know that Cincinnati is already an affordable city. But what I like about this plan is it's forward-thinking and it's looking to keep prices low while still attracting more people to the city. Mayor Pureval said the change is needed to spur more housing options in the city. He said, quote, "Because our zoning code is incongruent with the housing needs of our city. It slows down the process and we make it more expensive. So as a result, our housing production has slipped significantly despite the fact that the population has grown over the last 10 years. And in some communities, we're actually losing housing." All right, let's answer a few questions about this plan. First of all, why should you care? Well, the plan makes it easier to build housing and near the city's 39 recognized business districts and major transit routes. There are some maps online where you can see where these recognized business districts are and these transit routes are going, and that's really important for you to look at if this plan gets passed. Now, here's basically how the plan works. It's allowing developers to come in and build more residential units in smaller spaces without having to add a lot of additional parking. And that's why a lot of projects get grounded, is because developers not only have to pay for the renovation or the new build of the residential units, but they also have the land and need the space and the money to have the parking as well. So a big part of this plan is saying we're going to cut down on the unnecessary required parking, and we want to get more density, more residential units in the space that we already have. If you live in Cincinnati, you already know this. If you don't live here, you need to know that Cincinnati is kind of landlocked in some ways. There's a lot of topography and hills and the Ohio River that makes having just a whole bunch of extra land to build new residential spaces really difficult. That's why most of the new construction is being pushed outside into the suburbs where there's additional land and room to breathe. But under this new plan, developers would be able to build more units in less space with fewer required parking spaces, which makes it more cost effective for them, the developers, to do these projects. All right, next question. Will things look a whole lot different? The answer is no. Setbacks aren't being changed. Buildings can only be 1 story higher than previously allowed, and there are new rules that will require landscaping. What about historic areas? It's an important part of Cincinnati architecture. Preservation rules for historic districts, as they do now, will still trump zoning law. Now, another important question. What about affordable housing? This plan may provide more affordable housing, but it's not intended as an affordable housing program. The city is still working on that in other ways, but this plan does not include requirements that developers include affordable housing options. City officials say by building more housing, rents for everyone will go down. So it's more of an economic play, right? They're just trying to increase supply. When you increase supply, price goes down. A quote on the plan is that success for us would be throughout the city having more housing options at different prices so that we are not concentrating poverty and our zoning does not contribute to the racial segregation that we're seeing here today. All right, another question you might be asking is, didn't the city already do this? The answer is actually yes and no. There was a plan that 2 years ago died on the floor of city council. Residents said they were blindsided and they weren't given enough information. So this time around, Pureval and Harris, they spent the last 2 years going community to community to get input and share information about the plan. They've even built a website, which you can see here, where you can go and learn more. It's called Connected Communities. On the website, it says Cincinnati is a great place to call home, but it's a difficult place to find housing. Enter the Connected Communities. It's a series of proposed land use and zoning policy changes to help Cincinnati grow into a more accessible, people-focused, diverse, healthy, and connected community for all. The goal isn't just to build more housing, but to house more people. I love that. From a city leader standpoint, I want a leader who's saying, we want to grow the city. We want more people here. Our city is awesome, and it gets better if we get more people here. I think this is a cool plan that heads in that direction. Now, if you're interested in being a part of the process, you can still have a say in this. The plan was recently rolled out in a press conference, but the proposed laws, they're not even written yet. The timeline allows for hearings, more public input, and changes if needed. The idea is to vote on the plan before summer recess begins July 1st, and you can keep it locked on that Connected Communities website to see where there are local times for meetings that you can attend. All right, last question is, will this plan pass? I don't know. It's too soon to say. The plan has to go before the Cincinnati Planning Commission, and it will get a council vote. It was so contentious last time that council members are likely to gauge how citizens feel before committing his or her support. We know how politicians they want to kind of put their finger in the air and see which way the tea leaves are blowing. All right, so what do you guys think? I mean, overall, I think this is really cool. It's really smart. It's a way in our city to get more housing in spaces that already exist, where you're renovating, you're incentivizing developers. Now, the parking thing, I think, is going to be the big issue, but I think it's really smart because they're connecting it to these rapid transit bus routes that are coming out by the Cincinnati Metro system. And the idea of this bus route is that it's going to have many features of a light rail line for portions of the route, but without tracks. Those features include dedicated lanes, prepaid fares to quicken boarding, stations, and traffic signal priority. So if you were to come up with a plan of how can we increase housing, increase density in these different neighborhoods around Cincinnati, which is only going to help the local businesses, stores, restaurants, and small business owners in those communities, I think this is a really smart way to do it. You incentivize the developers, you get kind of strategic and like a sniper approach to it. I think it's really smart, but I'd love to hear what you guys think. Please leave your thoughts in the comments below. All right, guys, I'm going to be tracking this story as it goes because I think it's super interesting, and obviously it affects real estate throughout all Cincinnati. If you've gone this far on the video, please hit that like button so more people can see it, and hit that notification bell. Subscribe to the channel to be a part of the Sztanyo Clanyo and get all things living, news, and real estate in Cincinnati. Guys, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.